In this video, I'm going to be talking about audio redundancy. Now, this is a subject that is very important to me personally because I think by implementing workflows like I'm going to show you in this video, it has hands down changed the trajectory of my career for the better. I've told a couple of these stories before, but way back when I was an audio engineer for the Chive podcast, we got a call from John Cena's representation, and they were like, hey, you want to come do a podcast? He has some availability right before WrestleMania or something like that in Washington, D.C. So we fly from Texas to D.C., and I set up my equipment. They do the whole podcast, and I actually have an H6. So this recorder right here. At the end of the podcast, I hit stop, and on this screen, it said SD card reader error. My heart sank at that point because I was like, oh no, did we just lose that whole podcast? But we didn't, because I also had an H4n connected to my H6. So what was happening is I was taking the line out from my H6 and going into my H4n just as a redundant backup. And at the end of the day, I approached the two hosts of the podcast and I was like, hey, just to let you know, I got an SD card reader error on this device, and it was nothing to do with the Zoom. It was just it was a bad SD card that I was using. But it's okay because I had a backup on this. Maybe I could have lost my job if we went through this whole thing to get John Cena on the podcast and then we just lost the whole thing, but it was okay because I had a backup. Another time a workflow like this helped me was I had the opportunity to record Aaron Paul for some pickup lines that he needed to do for a movie called Need for Speed. And he was in Atlanta recording at the studio that I was working at the time. And my job was to play some visuals on a TV for him, have him record his lines, and then I send those lines to the post-production house in LA. Now, this normally happens over what could be considered like a Zoom call now. It's over ISDN. I don't want to get into the particulars. Just know that I'm on the quote-unquote phone with the people in LA, and Aaron Paul's in the studio with me, and I'm recording those lines. So normally what I do is play back the footage for the actor or actress before we even record so they can familiarize themselves with whatever we're going to be recording that day. And I did that with Aaron. The thing is, he's super professional. He already knew what he was going to be doing. So he started doing his takes before I hit the record button inside the studio. And I didn't realize this until like halfway through the take. And we get done with it, and the producers and director are like, man, that was great. That was an awesome take. Let's move on. And myself, I'm like, oh no, I didn't hit record. But again, the engineers that I worked with at that studio taught me to not only be recording in the studio, but also run a continuous recording backup just in case something happens in a separate studio. So what I did is had the signal coming into the mixing board. I was using Pro Tools at the time. And I also routed that signal from the microphone to a separate studio and just hit record before the session even started. This way, if a producer or a director says, oh, did you get that? You actually did get it, even if you didn't hit the record button inside the studio. So that was another circumstance where I told the people in LA, hey, I didn't record it here inside the project, but don't worry, I have that take. I'll just plop it in where it needs to go. The time codes might mismatch, but hey, I have everything. I'll make it work. That situation could have went a completely different way. I could have been very unprofessional and other things of that nature and not gotten the take, but I did. I was able to recover the audio and everything was completely fine. Now, fast forward to today when I'm recording YouTube videos and tutorials. Having a redundant backup has saved me days, and I mean days, of mistakes that I may have done, just not hitting the record button, not turning on a certain device, or I forgot to hit record audio on my screen recorder. All of these things have happened to me, and it doesn't really bother me too much at this point because The way that I have my workflow is I have the audio going to two separate sound sources. At any rate, I do think that people want to hire other people that they can trust. And in those first two examples especially, I was able to be trusted to get the job done right. And even if something went wrong, I was able to still recoup those files or get the audio that I was supposed to get for the job that I was hired to do. So what I do now is what I think is the best option of doing a redundant backup, or at least sending your microphone to two separate sources. And that is right here. This here is a very simple device. It's a audio splitter. Now, these are commonly used in live sound, where a singer will plug into a microphone input, and normally you would need to send that signal to two places. One is the behind the stage engineer, which is controlling the monitors or the in-ears or the speakers on the stage facing the artist or whoever's on the stage. They need to get their own mix. And then another version of that microphone from the singer is then sent to the person that's in the front of house, or that mixing board that's in the crowd, where that signal is treated differently because those speakers are facing the crowd. They need to do different levels and other things to the signal. In this circumstance, I am using a splitter to take my microphone input, let's say it's this boom microphone, and then I'm taking my output to two separate sources. One is my camera, the second is my audio interface. What this does is eliminate that issue where if something is not set up correctly on my Rodecaster, then it doesn't matter because my camera is getting the signal. Now let me show you how I set that up. So typically when I'm doing these videos, talking in front of this desk, or I'm doing a tutorial, this boom microphone, the Rode NTG3, is gonna be above me. And that cable, now, instead of going directly into my Rodecaster, is going to go into the microphone input. So this mic right here is now connected into my microphone input. And on the other side, we have two outs. The first one is the direct microphone output, and the other one is transformer isolated microphone output. If you were to just ask me what's the difference between those, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But the amazing folks over at Art Accessories who make this microphone splitter give you a description right here. It says direct output is connected directly to microphone input so that phantom power will pass through to microphone. And what that means is this input and this output, just think of those as the same as if you were to plug this into wherever you're going. So this input is right here. I need to supply phantom power to my microphone. So now I'm gonna take this Mogami cable right here, and where I had my microphone plugged in before, I'm gonna plug that in, like so. And then I'm going to plug this in to my direct microphone output. And if I tap the microphone, it acts exactly like it did before. Now, I connect my XLR adapter to the camera. I can take the isolated transformer output, plug that in, and then this goes directly into microphone input 1 of my camera, like so. You can see that it's just on channel 1. Now, here's the kicker. I can have my microphone above me that's in the best placement, and then just in case I even forgot to plug that microphone in, maybe I forgot to send phantom power from my Rodecaster, I can then plug this boom microphone into channel 2. Channel 2 has this microphone. Channel 1 has that microphone. So when I bring these into my editor, I have the clean, good signal from this microphone on the left channel, and I have a backup on this channel. Now I have the capability of hitting record on my Rodecaster Pro on top of being able to record via the USB-C from my Rodecaster. I don't think many creators use a microphone splitter in their setup. I think it has helped me immensely. And also in this setup, I've invested in the XLR adapter for my particular camera. That's another expense. I think it's worth it for me. But since I have all of this gear on camera and I need to show it to you, you may have thought that I haven't been able to do an audio redundant backup in just what I've been recording for this video. And you'd be wrong. I actually want to show you another way of doing a redundant backup. And that is right here. This whole time I've been recording this video, I've been using the EWDP SKP. And this device has the ability to not only plug into XLR microphones, but it also is able to receive the connection for my lapel microphone that I've been recording into for this video. It has a micro SD. So I've been recording into this micro SD at 32-bit float. It's at a lower level, so I don't have to worry about the dynamic range. It might look low when you bring it into your post-production editor, but all you need to do is normalize it. You don't have to worry about the noise being lifted up too. That's just how it records it, so it gives you the most dynamic range and it sounds clean. So even if my transmitter has something go wrong with the receiver, and maybe I've been recording all of this audio too hot into my camera, I don't have to worry about that because I've been recording everything internally here at the same time. Whether you're using a splitter or something like this setup, there are several other ways to do a redundant backup. There are other devices like this where it'll be a lapel microphone and it will have an SD card that you can record to internally and then also wirelessly send that off. I didn't even get to this, but you could use a mixing board to split your signal. There's a lot of capabilities here. My main objective of this video is just to bring up this conversation of at least having a audio backup, because when it comes time to people trusting you for a gig, I can guarantee that you would probably want to have a workflow like this in place rather than not have it, because you don't want to be talking to a producer in LA or John Cena or whatever it may be and be like, hey, I'm glad we did that whole podcast. You know what? The whole thing got erased. I don't wish that upon anyone, and having a redundant audio backup saves you from having that situation. Until next time, my name's Javier Mercedes. Check out whatever I link in the description if you're curious as to the different gear that I use. But I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. Bye.